How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the More Defined podcast. I'm your host, James Chapman Jr., and today we have Brad Kamikaze Franklin on the podcast today, and I'm gonna let him introduce himself and share a little bit more about who he is and what he does.
So, what's up, everybody? For those of you that don't know me, my name is Brad Franklin, also known as Kamikaze, Jackson native, born and raised, a father, husband, activist, artist, entrepreneur, creative, a lot of different titles. Founder, executive director of Jackson Indie Music Week, one of the founders of the Juneteenth on Frat Festival, one of the founders of the Mississippi Black Business Expo, one half, of course, of the Mighty Crooked Letters with myself and David Banner from back in the day. A lot of different things. A lot of y'all might know me from a lot of different things, man, but I'm pleased and honored to be here with you today. So fire away.
All right, the essence of the podcast is a conversation style, so I wanted to flow like one. And everything I start off with is kind of just a regular check-in, just to see how everything is going, kind of like all-encompassing. Doesn't have to be anything real specific, kind of like 1 to 10 you can share, and then I'll share after you.
Cool, cool, I'm good.
You can start it.
I mean, like, right now we're coming into the end of the year. So, it's a time for reflection for me, spending time with family. I'm just getting off the road, going to, on the road to pick up my grandkids. I got twin grandsons. So I'm getting ready to spend some time with them for the end of the year and just celebrated Christmas. We're in the midst of celebrating Kwanzaa right now as well. So it's really a time for reflection for me on a very busy year, doing a lot of different things and just trying to figure out how to manage them in 2026 and, how to manage, life, work-life balance, and then try to figure out maybe some new things to do, some new horizons to try to breach on and meeting new people like yourself, doing, podcasts out here, meeting all of the young people in the creative community that are doing things here and trying to collaborate with them and trying to offer whatever I can offer to the table for them to be able to do what it is that they do. Yeah.
Enjoy that. So for me, I would say everything's probably kind of like at a 9. I don't think I've ever said a 9 on here before. Mm-hmm. But kind of like similar how you were saying, because I spend a good bit of time throughout the year reflecting on things at different points in times. But the end of the year, it's always special to just kind of reflect on the whole year and like look forward to the next year and things of that nature. Yeah. And so my podcast is definitely something that's big for me. Moving into next year, I plan on doing a whole lot more of it than the past 2 years that I've been doing and everything.
Yeah, I'm checking it out. It looks like, you're growing and evolving in what you're doing. I kind of really take an assessment, really. There's an end of the year assessment, but then there is there's the end of the day assessment. You know what I'm saying? So there's every 24 hours taking an assessment, then every 7 days taking an assessment, then every 30 days taking an assessment. And you're always constantly kind of assessing and figuring out how you can evolve and change over and do things. So, and I like to learn. I like to meet people. I like to learn. I don't ever feel like I know enough. I think I'm gonna be trying to learn and absorb information until the day that I die. So even with all that I've done, I still like learning and I still like meeting people and still like trying to figure out and learn new things. The world is evolving so fast. The paradigm shifts so often these days. So for me, the joy in it is, kind of the unknown, kind of figuring out, what else is going to be coming up and getting out there that you can kind of grab a hold to. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So this is how I start off with my real first question. Something I ask all my guests. I know you do a lot of different things. So you kind of like talk about this question in maybe in a macro sense. But at what point in time did you know, or did somebody else tell you that you had the gift for kind of like the number of things that you're doing now?
That was early on. My mother was an educator. She was a teacher. She was an English teacher. And she started driving me from an early age. I tell people all the time that, being the son of an English teacher was crazy. She, prompted me. Well, he didn't prompt me. She told me she wanted me to learn a new vocabulary word every day when I was in elementary school. So she told me to get the dictionary every day and learn a new word, learn how to spell it, learn how to use it in a sentence, learn the context of it. And by the time I got to the 7th grade, I had a vocabulary that was probably a little bit more advanced than my peers. I think that's kind of what started me, I started writing poetry at an early age. And I think that's kind of what prompted me into being an MC and eventually, getting into the music business is because I had a love for words early on. And that was prompted by her. She, my mother always said to me that you can be whatever it is you want to be, whatever it is that you strive to do. Try to be the best at it, try to learn it and try to, accomplish it. So there was never really anything for me that I thought that I could put my mind to that I couldn't do. So early on, I just started doing any various number of things, whether it was writing plays at an early age, whether it was doing poetry at an early age, or whether it was sports. So I was really sports inclined. I played football and baseball, all through elementary and junior high into high school, played a little bit when I got to Jackson State. So sports was always incorporated in what I did. And I was always busy doing something. I come from the age where there was no social media, there were no tablets. I'm dating myself a little bit, but, there was no cable TV. It's like pre-cable. So, for me, being outside was what was up. That was everything. Yeah. So as much as I could be outside, I tried to be outside, whether it was playing sports or whether it was just kind of out just, being with friends, or whether it was doing some extracurricular activities, whether it was, doing a play, or whether it was participating in some type of program, or participating in church, or participating in Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts. I was, I did a little bit of everything, you know what I'm saying? So at the time, you had to kind of be involved and be out because there wasn't, there was 3-4 channels for you to watch. That was it. And, you could play Atari at the time, ColecoVision, the television, some of the things. I'm dating myself again. But, those were the first video games coming out. So, that kind of started the whole thing, at that point. But before then, I was very active, very outside, learned how to do a myriad of things. So that was just kind of something I just grew up on. So as I got into adulthood, whenever I saw something that I thought I wanted to try, I tried, even if I failed at it, even if I wasn't good at it, I did it, and I just pursued it, whether it was music, whether it was sports. And then being a Jacksonian, if there was something in this city that I saw wasn't happening, or if there was something that was here that I saw that needed to be created, or if I saw that there was a void that needed to be filled, I would just fill it. I would just do it. So that's what, prompted me to create a lot of the different things that I created here in the city, because as I traveled, being in the music business, traveling, I saw things that were going on in other places. And I was like, hell, there's no reason why we can't do that in Jackson. And I would just come back and get a few people in the room and say, hey, let's do this, let's try it. And the next thing you know, those things just evolved and they kept going. Now, Jackson Music Week is in its 11th year. Juneteenth on Ferris is going into its 8th year. So, these are all ideas that I got some people in the room and said, hey, let's do it and let's see if we can keep this up. And those things were able to kind of just keep going over time, man. So early on, I was given the motivation to do whatever it is that your heart desires. Yeah.
Besides your mom, was there anybody else that you can really pinpoint that gave you kind of those keys or pushes when you needed?
My parents were major influences for me. My father was in the military. He also worked for the state of Mississippi for 40 years. I got my work ethic from him. I saw him go to work every day and never missed a day of work. He showed me that discipline. My mother showed me the creativity side. So they were kind of my inspiration in that sense. I had a lot of educators, a lot of teachers in elementary school early on. A lot of my open doors teachers, gifted class, a lot of people, my second, third grade gifted open doors teacher that taught me how to play chess. I learned how to play chess early on. That was influential for me. I had a lot of coaches coming up across summer, playing summer baseball, who were influential. There were a lot of adults around me who kind of influenced me in a lot of different ways to do a lot of different things. So I was blessed. I know everybody is not as blessed to have that many good, adult figures around them, but I was blessed enough to have a lot of very good mentors around me, from my parents to people at church to teachers at school to coaches. just the people that lived in my neighborhood, men that lived in my neighborhood that I saw along with my dad do things like, cut other people's yards when they needed it. Or when Christmas came up, they would be at the front of the neighborhood and they'd put the decorations up in front of the neighborhood when people would drive in and do those things. Or, just basically just helping out the sense of community that existed. And I saw a lot of black men in my community doing that. And that's kind of what helped to instill a lot of that in me. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't see that, but it was something that I saw growing up. So that kind of influenced, what I turned into as an adult.
All right. So what does it mean to be born and raised here in Jackson and as Mississippi as a whole?
Man, being raised in Mississippi, man, it makes us special. I tell people all the time, being born and raised in Mississippi makes you special. It makes you different from everybody else. This is hallowed ground that we live on. Greats have been born on this soil and have walked this soil, whether they be from music, whether it be political activists, whether it be actors and actresses, whether it be sports figures. We've had some great people that were born and raised on this soil. And I tell people all the time, we should carry that as a badge of honor. If not it being a chip on our shoulder, we should carry it as a badge of honor. Too many times I see people from Mississippi being born with this inferiority complex because we're told by external figures, we're told that you're Mississippi, you're 50th, you're last, you're nothing, you're this, you're that. And when you hear that enough, when you see that enough in the media and you hear people talk about that enough, you begin to internalize it and you begin to believe it. And a lot of people are born here believing that they're not good enough and that Mississippi is not good enough. The reason why we have such brain drain right now, why we're losing a lot of people, because they feel like where they're at is not good enough. And I'm one of the people who, I had the opportunity from being in the music business, I had the opportunity to live in other places. I lived in New York for a while. I lived in Atlanta for a while and came back home. I was always drawn back home. And I said to myself that, if I leave and if everyone like me leaves, if everyone with the talent leaves, then who's going to stay here and actually help to build up our city and our state? And I won't say that I made a sacrifice. I made a decision that I think was the best decision that I ever made in staying. I could be any place else in the country right now living. My family could be any place else in the country right now. And I chose to stay here, chose to raise my kids here. And I chose to, dig in and fight. So I tell people every day. And I think we're getting a lot more people now, and this new generation of folks that I see coming up are doing a lot to try to dispel the negative image and the negative narrative that has been painted about Mississippi. But you have to be, you're special if you're from here. And I want everybody to understand that if you're born in Jackson, if you're born in Mississippi, you are special and you are different than everybody else. I won't say that you're better than everybody else, but I will say this being the birthplace of America's music, this being the cradle of civilization for black folk in this nation, Mississippi is special, and you should wear that as a badge of honor.
Yeah, I definitely was about to be kind of like one of those statistics for the brain drain and everything. But I just felt at the time before I finished college and everything, and that what the Lord was showing me at the time too, I was like, maybe I should stay here, or maybe I should at least start my career here and everything like that. But where I'm at now, I feel like kind of like how you were saying, where you felt like you were drawn to come back here. I feel like where I'm at in my life now, I'm drawn to still just be here, to be able to help build up the city, be able to help dispel a lot of those negative stereotypes and everything.
Yeah. It's not pretty, and I think for a lot of people, they want it to be pretty, and they want it to be cookie cutter, and they want it to be easy. But when you're fighting from the position that Mississippi is fighting from, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to require some sacrifice. It's going to require some strain. It's going to require, some vigor for you to kind of stay and fight. And that's just the way that it's going to be. And for those who decide to do it, I commend them. I don't begrudge anyone who decides to leave here and decides to go. If you have a job offer or if something draws you to another city, go get your bag, get your money, do what you need to do. I don't have any problem with that. Just don't down Mississippi. Don't talk about Mississippi when you leave. Just go live your life and do your thing. So I don't begrudge anyone that leaves here. I love when people leave and go get knowledge and bring it back. I love that. In a lot of instances, though, most of the people that leave, when they say that they're coming back, they don't come back. But a few people that have left that I know have come back and brought back some of that knowledge that they've had and gotten in other places and brought it back and are using it here. And that's good. And then there's a lot of folks like myself who've decided to stay. Fifth Child, who runs, the Broadwood Arts Center, have decided to stay and fight. And, we are dug in. We are in the trenches every day, fighting for this city and fighting for this state to change the perception that other people have outside of here about the state. And it's not pretty and it's not easy. And it's a thankless job because every day you see something negative about Mississippi. And unfortunately, it's a lot of times from people that live here. Literally. So, we're fighting an uphill battle. And we're fighting against, a narrative that has been set for us for many, many years. But, I'm dedicated to it, and I've made a lot of sacrifices for it, and I'm going to see it through. And it may not turn the page while I'm here on this earth, but I hope to be able to, possibly influence, somebody like you, my kids, my grandkids, to be able to change that narrative in 20 or 30 years and have this thing to be totally changed and totally turned around. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Staying on that flow, did you ever feel like before you kind of like actually got into the work for real, did you ever feel like you had to play a role in changing that narrative?
Yeah. I mean, you've got to thrust yourself into it. You have to actually get in and you have to do the work. You can't be a spectator. We're not at the point in the city where we can have people that are on the fence and where we can have people that are sitting back and kind of spectating. It's the way I kind of feel about what's happening in this country right now. This is not the time for you to be passive. This is not the time for you to be standing back. This is not the time for you to be straddling the fence. We don't need people that are indifferent or undecided about where they're going to stand. So we don't really need people that are indifferent and that are trying to decide where they're going to stand as it relates to Mississippi. You either in or you're out. If you don't want to be a part of it, that's cool. We're not stopping you. God bless you, Godspeed on wherever it is you want to go. But those of us that are staying here, we are dead set and dead serious on trying to change that narrative. And you gotta get your hands dirty. You gotta get in here. You gotta actually put in some sweat equity. And again, I go back to Fifth Child and what he's doing with Broadwood Arts Center. This is the manifestation right here of what actually getting your hands dirty is about. Actually doing the work, actually putting the time in, doing the reading, doing the research, spending the money, sacrificing the time, the personal time to be able to put a community center together, in a building in a neighborhood that had just let this building sit for a while. It takes a lot of moxie for you to do that, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of sacrifice for you to do it. And we need a lot of people like him that are willing to get their hands dirty because that's what it's going to take. Superman is not coming. Nobody is coming to save us. We got to do the work ourselves, and we got to be dedicated to doing the work. And whatever part that is, everybody's not going to be able to start an art center, but people can start a podcast like you. You can start a show. You could talk about the issues that are out there. There are people that have many different skill sets and many different talents that can participate in many different ways. So figure out what that is for you and, jump in. We're ready for you to jump in and get in the fight. Yeah.
JSU, the I Love Alumni. What does it mean for you to have a degree from a HBCU such as Jackson State?
Oh, man. My HBCU experience is one of the greatest ever. Jackson State University, the greatest HBCU on the face of God's green earth. I met some fantastic people, made some fantastic friends, started some very fantastic relationships that I have to this day. HBCUs are a melting pot for people from across this country. They come into an experience to experience blackness. Jackson State University is like you're experiencing blackness in its most epic and aggressive proportion. When you are here, in the city of Jackson, Mississippi, and in the heart of Jackson, Mississippi, being on that campus, for any student, I think it's one of the greatest experiences that you can have. And that degree that I got from Jackson State University, and I'm in grad school right now, so I'm going after my master's now, but, my degree in mass communications has taken me, all over this country, again, speaking, being on panels, helping people. It's what I do now every day. I do public relations, I do branding, I do marketing. I gained all of those skills at Jackson State University. It's where I learned. And we have so many people that are in the mass communications field, so many newscasters, so many content creators, so many reporters that are from Jackson State University that walk those same grounds that I walked in, were in those same buildings. And even now, those kids now, when I go back and talk to them, they've got resources now that I didn't have when I was on the campus. The cameras that existed. I remember being on campus and having the big camera that you had to go, and we had to sign that camera out, and it was one camera, and we had to go sign it out to be able to use it, to be able to go, do stand-ups and cut footage and things of that nature. So now the cameras are handheld. So now you got cameras here, you got the digital age, so many different things at these kids' disposal now, and Jackson State can be the conduit for them to get right into the workforce. And the skills that I gained at Jackson State University allowed me to be able to go and not just work at TV stations, but I worked at newspapers. I worked at advertising agencies. I worked at marketing agencies because I had to learn how to do everything at the time when I was on the yard. And that's what I had to do, acquire my skills to get my mass communications degree. And I think it was a great experience. And for me, if you are a black kid, being at a HBCU is going to be an experience that you can't duplicate anyplace else. Now, if Jackson State doesn't offer the major that you want, or the HBCU does not have the discipline that you want, I get it, and I understand it totally. I'm not begrudging anybody that goes to Ole Miss or Mississippi State. If you want to go to LSU, if you want to do that, fine. If you're an athlete and that's the best place for you to go, fine. But outside of that, if you are a black student, you're not going to get an experience like an HBCU experience anyplace else, and it's going to prepare you for the world much better, I think, than going to any other institution that exists out there.
For your mass communications degree, did you kind of have your mind set on that when you first got to campus, or was it something? Okay.
Early on, I wanted to be a newscaster. I wanted to be a news anchor. That's what I came to campus on my mind. I was writing already at the time, but my goal was to do national news. I wanted to work my way up and be a news anchor. But when I got on campus, I started writing. So I got my love of writing back again, and I started writing for the Blue and White Flash. So I started writing for the Flash and started doing articles. So my actual first job when I graduated was working at the Jackson Advocate as a reporter. So I actually started working in print before I even got back into TV. And I was doing radio too, so I was on WJSU. Like, I did literally everything. You had to do everything. So, I started out in print, went to broadcast. I even did some radio as well. And I did a little bit of all of it, and I ended up, kind of landing on print, and ended up being a news reporter for the Clarion Ledger, Jackson Advocate, Mississippi Link, Jackson Free Press. Ended up writing for those folks and just returning to my first love, which is always writing. But when I went to the campus, I went with the goal of being a newscaster, and that was going to be my goal at the end of the day. I wanted to be able to read the news every night to people.
Yeah, I like that. I want to make sure I get this right. Did you pledge at all while you were there?
Yes, yes. I pledged Alpha at Jackson State University, Bloody D-Phi at Jackson State University in spring of 1991, 16 Nubian Nights, A Majestic Fire and Ice, and another one of those great HBCU experiences. There's nothing like it. And nothing, again, and I always had to preface it, nothing against anybody that pledged at the PWIs, nothing against you guys. And I got a lot of frats that I know that pledged at PWIs, are the cool people that are here in town. But it's just nothing like being on the yard. It's just nothing like the HBCU experience. And not just Jackson State, traveling during football season. It's nothing like being at an HBCU and then you're going to Alcorn's campus during a game, or you're going to Valley's campus, or you're going to Southern's campus in Baton Rouge, and you just being on the campus, and all of the great people in this country, black folk who went to HBCUs, who are, great folks now in the grand pantheon of things, man. It's just, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, man. It was a great experience. I had a great experience. I love the homecoming experience because all of those people that I met in those relationships, we're still in touch now, and then we all get together, and it's a real family reunion type of vibe. JSU homecoming is one of the biggest in the nation, and it's a great thing, man. So it's pledging for me is one of the personal achievements for me that helped me to garner even more relationships, more personal relationships with people that, you know, I still call my brothers right now to this day, that are successful in all facets of life, that you can call if you have questions, legal questions, academic questions, political questions, law enforcement questions. Like, you know, somebody is in some field in some way, you know, that was in our chapter on the yard that you can call and you can ask questions about, you know, entertainment, just all kinds of different things, man. It's just a melting pot. And, you know, man, I can't, you know, praise it enough. I think it's a great experience, man. Please, Black folks, send your kids to HBCUs. Let them have that experience. I think it is a great one.
All right, moving on. At what time frame did you initially get into the music industry?
I started before I graduated from Jackson State. So I graduated in 92. So around 91, I started getting serious about it. Now, I've been kind of playing around and writing lyrics and rapping and doing songs and stuff, you know, previously. In 91, right after I pledged, as a matter of fact, I got serious about doing music because people would just kept saying, hey, man, you're good, you're good, you're good. You should do this, this. And, you know, I've never gone into a studio before actually and recorded a record before. And I actually went in and started doing it with myself and some partners of mine that were on my floor. I was staying in Dixon Hall at Jackson State on the sixth floor. I was in Honors College. So Honors College students were on the fifth floor and the sixth floor, and I was on the sixth floor. And, you know, one cat from Chicago that was a DJ, another guy that was an MC from Detroit, MC JC John Cobb, and the DJ's name was Lavelle Love. I walked past their dorm room, and he had his DJ set up, and he was in there mixing, and he was playing music, and the other guy was kind of just freestyling, and it instantly caught me, and I went in the room, and I started hanging out in that room every day. So the DJ kept playing break beats, and we kept rapping, and, you know, people would gather around in the hall, and we started doing the thing, and then we was like, hey, man, let's put a group together. Let's do some music. And we formed a group called The Network, and my little brother got in the group with us, and we started doing things around town. And, you know, we won a couple of Jackson Music Awards, not Jackson Indie Music, but Jackson Music Awards. Performed at different places, performed at different clubs, at different festivals and events. And eventually that grew, and we started running into other people on the campus that were into hip hop. And we ran into, you know, folks from Chicago and Detroit and other places. And we just started kind of getting together, and we formed a crew. And, you know, out of that crew, in like 93, out of that crew, myself and David Banner, that was a part of this crew. And David Banner was a SGA president at Southern University at the time. And he was a part of the crew, and he pulled me to the side, and he was like, hey, you from Jackson, I'm from Jackson. We should get together and we should form a group, and we're gonna call the group Crooked Letters. Because anytime you say the word Crooked Letters, you're saying Mississippi. So the name of the group was Crooked Letters, and we ended up getting signed in 97, put out an album on Warner Brothers in 98, 99, got a chance to travel the world doing music. I could say that I expected to do that because that's what I set out, but you know, you never know what's gonna happen. I'm just a kid, we rapping, we're going in the studio, we making songs, we're doing what we believe we're supposed to do. We're putting demo tapes together, sending them out, you know what I'm saying? We're doing all the things that we thinking we're supposed to do. And, you know, we look up one day and we get, you know, a couple of articles in the Source magazine and a couple of magazines that were really big back in the day. People started kind of knowing about us from there. And we actually had Warner Brothers came down here and we did a showcase for them at one of the clubs down here at the time, and they signed us. And, you know, things took off from there. We were able to travel the world doing music. And then after that, there was a little lull in between, and Banner did his thing and I did mine. Of course, he went on to do, of course, what we know that he's doing now. And I started getting into more of an administrative role because when I was out on the road with Crooked Letters, we were running into people who were making way more money than we were doing things independently. And that's when I learned about the independent game, and I learned about, you know, label politics, and I learned about where the real money existed. And I said, you know, I need to stop trying to worry about getting record deals, and I need to figure out how to do this side of the game. So I formed my own independent label. I put out my own records independently. Put out my first independent record in 2001. Put out my second independent record in 2005. That record sold about 40,000 copies independently. I made about $500,000 on that record. Blew every cent of it. And I tell people that to this day, like, you know, you never know how fast you can go through money until you actually don't know what to do with it. And it wasn't 500 racks in one whop. It was over time, you know what I'm saying? I had my records in stores and my records were selling. And this was independent. This was the time where, you know, you had hard copy CDs and you had to go to different record stores in the state and drop your CDs off. So people were going in and they were buying the CDs from here to Louisiana, to Alabama, Georgia, Little Rock, Tennessee, Florida, you know, and I sold, you know, damn near 40,000 records on that when I looked up at the end of the day. And it added up. You know, over time, it added up, and I was taking money, putting it back into this and spending it on that and doing this and doing that. And you look up after it's all over with and there's nothing left to show for it. And that's lesson number 3 that I got at that point about, you know, being in the music business at that time. But I learned the business side of things and I learned the corporate side of things. And that's kind of where I stayed for a while. I wanted to be behind the scenes and I wanted to figure out how things work because I saw in my matriculation that people that were behind the scenes made the most money. They made the most money and they were able to make the most decisions and keep the most control over what they were doing with their creative product and with their creative license. And then I started learning about business and other things. So that's when I started, you know, my label. Then I started, you know, my production company. Then I started my public relations company. And then that thing kind of morphed into, you know, me taking on clients in the entertainment industry and consulting them on their marketing and branding. And that branched out to me doing political candidates. Then that branched out to me doing companies, and that branched out to me doing venues and clubs. And, you know, people were calling because they wanted to learn how to market and brand, you know, whatever it was that they were doing. And that kind of fascinated me more because it intrigued me a lot more than just doing music. And I was still doing music. I was still managing at the time. You know, Dear Silas, an artist that, you know, I think a lot of people know out there that's from Jackson. You know, I managed him from 2014 all the way up to 2020, as a matter of fact. And he was, you know, one of the few artists from Jackson, Mississippi to get a major deal. We got him a deal with Sony Records in 2018. And I was managing him at the time. So I'm like the only person in Jackson, Mississippi that's ever had a major deal as an artist and as a manager. So, you know, I'm glad that those things happened because they taught me, you know, the business side of things. It taught me how to be able to kind of impart wisdom and kind of mentor younger people. So now, you know, I want to make sure that this next generation of artists and creators from this city have their business together, first of all, most importantly. And then once they have their business together, how to create and how to make, you know, that last, how to be consistent, how to have longevity, because this is a game that will chew you up and spit you out. Now, in this age of content creators, you know, a lot of these content creators are here today, gone tomorrow. You know, you can go viral and then the next thing you know, nothing works. You can go viral one time and you can, you know, live for the rest of your life if you're smart, if you know what to do. What a lot of people go viral one time, don't know what to do with it, you know, get money, spend it, you know, don't know how to capitalize on it. You know, you have the opportunity now these days to be able to take care of your family by doing these things. And you need to be able to figure out how to do them, be consistent, be smart, and how to build generational wealth for yourself so that you're not continuously chasing that viral moment, so that you're not continuously every day trying to figure out what kind of crazy stuff can I do today to get people to pay attention to this page. And then you're whoring yourself out at that point, prostituting yourself, because every day now I got to figure out how to do something crazier than what I did yesterday for people to pay attention to what I'm doing, as opposed to being able to evolve and do different things. So I, you know, consult and mentor a lot of people on kind of just showing them how to navigate that world and how to be smart about doing it so that you're working smarter and not harder. And you're letting your talents and you're letting this digital age and all of this stuff work for you, as opposed to you kind of being a slave to it. If that makes sense.
Yeah. What was it like starting your music career in the '90s and kind of seeing the buzz of being in the South, being in Mississippi, and then like that like blooming of it in like that 2000s new millennia kind of age?
I'm gonna tell you, like in '96, '97, in '96, I moved to Atlanta. And a crazy story, I moved to Atlanta because I was working for the Associated Press at the time. So, I got my mass comm degree. So I was working at the Associated Press, which for journalists at the time is kind of like one of the peak things that you can do. So I got transferred to Atlanta to cover the '96 Olympics in Atlanta. So I was over there working for the Associated Press Bureau, covering the Olympics, writing, and I'm in Atlanta in the year that Atlanta kind of transformed. The Olympics transformed Atlanta into what it is today. The movements and the things that local government did in Atlanta to prepare for the Olympics is what shaped it into what it is now. When they were tearing down the projects and they were moving Techwood and they were putting the park down, the Centennial Park downtown, and the things they did in downtown, all that shook up the city and changed the whole dynamic. And if people listen to the first Outkast and the first Goody Mob records, when they talk about the Red Dogs and they talk about what was happening then, all those things happened around that time because Atlanta was trying to clean up the city because the world was coming. The Red Dogs existed because they were putting this rogue police force together because they were trying to clean up Atlanta because all of these people were coming to Atlanta to visit for the Olympics. And you hear that in the music of Outkast and Goody Mob on those first couple of albums. And I was in Atlanta at that time watching this happen in real time. And, I was there during, those times where, in '96, '97, when Freaknik was going on and, Dre and Big Boy were actually out passing out cassette samplers of the ATLiens album. This is after Southern Playalistic had come out. And you were running to all of these artists doing all these things. Then the mood and the energy was just electric in the city. And you could feel the shift happening in the city at that time. And for me being from Jackson, Mississippi, seeing that, we were always told that, the South, you guys are ruining hip hop and we hate that you're participating in it and yada, 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 yada. And, seeing these guys from Atlanta do what they were doing was very inspirational for me because when I grew up and we started doing music, most of our influences were East Coast based artists. I grew up listening to Wu-Tang and I grew up listening to, Run DMC and grew up listening to De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, all those guys on the East Coast. I grew up listening to a whole bunch of them. And then, of course, in '92, '93, Snoop and Dre and the whole West Coast thing started at that time. So you're seeing these two coasts drop this music. And then somewhere in the middle in that part there, the Ghetto Boys dropped in Houston. And they were like, okay, boom, we're here. And then the next thing you know, you got Outkast and Goody Mob and the Dungeon Family to drop. Then Luke comes from Florida. He dropped. So the next thing you know, the South gets into this thing. And now you no longer have to sound like you're from the East. When we first started rapping, we thought that we had to sound like we were from the East Coast in order to make it. And a lot of our music was influenced like that. And then when I finally saw the Ghetto Boys and I saw Outkast and I saw Goody Mob and the Dungeon Family doing their music, I knew then that I could be authentically Mississippi. I could be authentically Southern and still tell my story. Yeah. And that's what actually worked for us at the end of the day. And that's what actually worked for Crooked Letters for us to be able to get our deal. And, the South has continued to dominate, music since then. And it's because of the melting pot that exists. People from all over, in Atlanta at that time, people came from all over the world to Atlanta to the Olympics, and a lot of them stayed. New York people, West Coast people, Jamaicans, these folks, Midwest, all these folks came in and stayed in Atlanta and made it into a melting pot. And the South itself became a melting pot. You got all these people that were coming to Clark, Atlanta, and they were coming to Spelman, and they were coming to Southern, they were coming to Jackson State, they were coming to Florida A&M. They were coming to all of these schools, HBCUs again, going back to that. They were coming from all parts of the country. And the South became a melting pot. And we were able to take that and use that, and it kind of got into the music and created this kind of gumbo mix of creativity that existed in the South, man. So, being a part of it at that time was really good, and seeing where it has evolved to now and seeing Mississippi begin to get its own sound and its own unique personality and what it is that it's doing, and people starting to be recognized now. I think it's really good, and I think our time is, I would say our time is now. I think we've had our time, but, a lot of people will say that it's imminent and it's coming. But, I think, this is the time right now that you're going to see more than one. In the past, there's always been one person from Mississippi, one person from Jackson who was able to break through at the point. But I think now is the time that you're going to see several people from Jackson and Mississippi. You're going to see several people out at the same time, to where people are going to be like, hey, it's something happening in Jackson, Mississippi. We got to pay attention to it. Yeah.
Coming from a news and journalism background, what part has that played into what you did as an artist?
It's the words, man. It's the use of words. Being a journalist and being able to paint pictures, being able to paint, movies with your words, I think is very important. As a journalist, your job, especially now in this digital age, the written word is so important.
Oh, yeah.
Because now everything is digital. So what you write and how you write it has to be dynamic, and it has to grab people, and it has to help people be able to see a visual when they're doing it. And I think me being an artist and me being a creative, going back to, my mother urging me to write plays and do those things when I was young, those are the things that shaped my lyrics. And I think my lyrics helped to shape my writing. At the end of the day, because, in being an MC, you're painting a picture. You're painting a portrait with your words, so that people are able to close their eyes and kind of see what it is that you're talking about. When you're writing a story, whether it's a hard news story or whether you're doing a feature story, your job is to paint a picture so that people are reading your words and they can, in their mind, see the picture that you're writing for them. And I think the best writers, whether they are MCs or whether they are journalists, the best ones are the ones who are able to make you see what it is that they're writing. And I've always tried to do that in anything that I do. Even now, when I make Facebook posts, now I try to be as descriptive as possible, because I want people to read it, and I want you to be able to really feel what it is that I'm saying. If you can feel the essence of what it is that I'm saying, and I can keep your interest long enough, then, I know I got you at that point. So I always try to be as intriguing, and I try to be as descriptive as I possibly can. And that came from me doing the music, and that got into my journalism. And even now, to this day, like doing stuff on social media, I try to make sure that I'm painting a picture, because if I'm not able to visually show you what it is that I'm talking about, I want you to be able to read this, close your eyes, after you take it in, and I want you to be able to see what it is that I'm talking about. And I think you'll kind of feel it a little bit better even then, because now you're going deep within yourself, and you're going deep within your soul and your own psyche, and you're creating that picture, not one that's already, made for you. And I think for me, that's the most strongest image that you can come up with, the one that you create in your own mind, in your own reality. And writing helps you to do that. Good writing, not all writing, but good writing helps you to do that. What I'm saying?
Apart from that, does, like you said, whenever you're like doing certain things on your own, does that play a role into what you do now with a lot of your work behind the scenes, with trying to create that picture and trying to be able to help whoever it is that you're working with be able to show that story?
So part of marketing and branding is, getting people to see what you're about. It is your essence. Branding is who you are. Marketing is how you tell people about who you are. So you want people to be able to see an image. You want to be able to see a picture. You want them to be able to see a logo. You want them to be able to see a tagline, and you want them to know who you are.
Yeah.
You want them to be able to guess who you are from seeing it, and you want them to buy into it. Your brand is not just, about who you are, but, it's about why should we care? It's about why should people care about you, what it is that you're doing. So when I talk to artists, or if I talk to podcasters, if I talk to actors, if I talk to political candidates, it's about who are you and why should we care? Why should I care about what you're saying? Why should I care about what you're doing? Why should I care about this music that you're putting out? Why should I care about this book? Why should I care about this movie? What is the essence of it? What is it that you're trying to convey? What is it that you're trying to say? And it's important that you're able to tell that story. and tell that message. In this day and age, people are inundated with so much stuff every day. You see, I mean, every day, 24/7, the news cycle is continuous and your news feed is scrolling. You're going from social, you're going from Facebook to Instagram to TikTok. And if you're young, you're going from Instagram to TikTok to Snapchat. So it doesn't, you know, different places to Twitter to X. You know, now you got Threads. So now you got all these different social media platforms that you have, and people are just inundated with stuff every day. So what's going to make you stand out? What's going to make me read your post and your post stand out? What's going to make your content stand out over somebody else's? They've got the same cameras you got. In some instances, they might have a better camera than you. Some instances, they might have no camera. They might be using their iPhone. So, you know, you don't know what medium they're using to get this, but everybody's got the same tools available to them. Everybody's got the same social media. They've got the same access to the same people. Now with the music, you know, you can put your music up on TuneCore, you can put your music on DistroKid. You have the ability to go directly to the consumer. You don't have to go through anyone. What's going to make your noise stand out amongst all of the other noise that exists? That's the story that you need to tell. What makes it special? What makes you special amongst all the other people that believe that they're special as well? You know, how do you do that? So I like being behind the scenes and figuring out those mysteries for people and their brands and figuring out what can you do to make people stand out to really want to rock with you.
Going back kind of into you as an artist, you did speak on this a little bit earlier. Did you ever have the vision though of becoming a chart-topping artist, top charting hip hop artist, or was it, or did you kind of have like your eyes set on something else while you were in the mix of it?
Nah, I wanted to make millions of dollars, and I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be #1 on the charts. I wanted to, you know, have my choice of different ladies every night. I wanted the same things that everybody that kind of starts out doing this music wants, especially in that time. Now, you may talk to people now, and let me tell you, if you talk to me now, the artist I am now, compared to what I was 25 years ago, it's night and day. You know, now, you know, I do the music that I want to. I do the music that I feel. I do it when I want to do it. It's not my job anymore. Now it is a love. And I'm more free now to do all of the things that I couldn't do when I started out. When I started out, when you get signed, your job is to make hit records. Your job is to top the charts. Your job is to be popular, to be seen. That's your job. That confines you to a prison that sometimes, you know, eats you alive because you're stuck in a cycle of trying to make popular music. Thankfully, I'm no longer in that cycle. But yeah, in the very beginning, you know, I started rapping in the 8th grade for the same reason a lot of people rap, for girls. I mean, that's it. I mean, I wanted girls to pay me attention, so I started writing raps. I started beatboxing. That's what I did because it got you attention. I wanted to dress fly. I wanted to have nice things. I wanted to have money like the rappers that I saw on TV. Anybody that tells you anything any different than that when they were young is lying to you. Anybody. You know, they can tell you all that, you know, I want to come in, I want to change the world, and I want to do all this. And yeah, you may have at the end of the day, but you also want to make some money. You also want to be on Rap City. You also want to be on 106 and Park. And you also wanted to drive nice cars and have nice things. I think, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that at all whatsoever. But, you know, when, you know, once you grow up, you know, you put away some of those things and you learn and you grow and you mature and you learn how to do it. But I don't expect anybody in their 20s, like I was at the end of time, to say that they want to do anything else but to be rich and famous. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
All right. Hourglass Media, you're the president of that company. How did this come about for you?
This was when I told you in the transition from being in Crooked Letters to Banner and I doing solo things. Hourglass was created in the early 2000s because I wanted to start my own independent label. You know, Banner went on to get his $10 million deal with SRC Records and Universal, and that worked out smashingly for him. I instead wanted to be in charge of my destiny. So I created Hourglass Entertainment, which morphed into Hourglass Media Group, because I wanted to learn the business. And I wanted to learn about actually, you know, putting the records together, distributing the records, and what was the process of putting the records in the record stores, the publishing points, the royalties, the splits on the records, all of those things. I wanted to learn all of that and get involved into it. And that's kind of what I started doing at that point. And then as I started branching out into other things outside of music, that's when the media group part of it came in, because then I started working with people on movies. I started working with people on different types of content. I started consulting with entertainment companies and political candidates, and with different venues and businesses were coming to me. We're getting ready to open this, and this over here, and we need some help, getting started with our brand. And those things just started kind of snowballing. And it all started from music. People were watching what I was doing on the music side and, how that was working. And I just studied, did a lot of research, talked to a lot of people who were younger than me, by the way, too, who were getting into this social media thing and kind of figuring out and learning it and evolving and figuring out the tricks of the trade and how to make things work. And people were seeing that these things were working for me, and they were like, hey, can you come over here and help us to, show us how to work our Instagram page, show us when we need to post, show us how we need to post, show us what we need to say. We've got this problem at our venue, this and this happened, and what should be our statement to the public? How should we handle this issue? So it started, doing some trouble. I would say it's like Olivia Pope, but I was really kind of going around, kind of helping people do damage control, and what should our statement be to the public, and what when we call a press conference, it started turning into that kind of thing. And these are things that just kind of just naturally started happening, and people started calling me and asking me to do these things, and that's how it kind of morphed into Hourglass Media Group. And now we handle a myriad of different things, man, and it's fun. I've been able to take a lot of young people under my wing and that work with me, and been able to teach them the ropes, and they've been able to go out and do their own things in their own respective fields, whether it's shooting content, whether it's editing content, or whether going out and helping people do marketing and branding on their own. So I take some of my greatest joy and my greatest pride in taking young people and kind of giving them the game, and then watching them go out and be even greater and even bigger than I was. And I think paying it forward for me has been one of my greatest joys, being able to, see people that I've talked to, mentored, go out and, just go do that thing. I think that, for me to hold on to this knowledge and hold on to this information and not pass it on, I think would be a tragedy for me to do it. I'm not holding on to any of this. There's nothing I can do with it. So I'm not holding on to it. Like, you got a question, you want to know something, I'm going to try to do my damnedest to give you the best information or point you in the direction of the person that can give it to you, because I want to see you win and I want to see you excel, because that's what's going to help Mississippi to win. You know what I'm saying? A rising tide floats all boats. So if one person is rising, it helps everybody to rise. So even if it's somebody that you don't know, if there's somebody that's excelling in their field, that means something. If you look at Rita Brent out here doing what she's doing in the comedy thing, she's from Jackson, Mississippi. You may not know who she is personally, but what she's doing and the attention that she's bringing to Mississippi is going to help some other comedian or help some other person in the creative field, because those eyeballs are being turned to Jackson, Mississippi. You may not know Dear Silas or Akeem Ali, you may not know them personally, but what they do shines a light on Jackson, Mississippi, which means that rising tide is going to float all of these boats that's here. So anybody that you see from here that's excelling, Angie Thomas or Keisei Lehman, any of those people that you see, the writers, any content creators, any of those people that you see, if they're from here and they're talking about Jackson, Mississippi, them being out there shines a light on what we do. And that rising tide helps to float all the boats. So if you see somebody out there being successful, you should commemorate that, you should support them, and you should help them in any way possible, because vicariously, that is going to trickle down to you in some shape, form, or fashion. The podcast is anybody that's doing anything on a big level that helps you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That helps everybody that's out here in the creative community. So I think we should just be a cheerleader for everybody that's out there. Be a cheerleader for the folks that are out there doing what they do, man, because that's going to help you personally in the end, especially if you somebody that wants to do something in the creative community.
When you started, when it was just Hourglass Entertainment Company, You spoke about being able to learn the different things that you need to learn and talk to other people, even folks that were younger than you, to kind of get some of that knowledge. What was kind of like one or two of those main things that you felt like you needed to really lock down at that point in time to be able to move forward into like what it's kind of morphed to now?
Man, one of the things, this content thing, coming from the generation that I come from, you have to learn how important it is. You have to learn, how to create it, when to post it, when to put it, putting together a plan. It's a lot of meticulous things that go into creating content. One of the main things that I learned is just create it, first of all. Don't hold on to it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Create it and put it out. It's going to resonate with somebody, and then be consistent after that. But, I come from a generation, man, like, we had to physically drive to the radio stations to talk to program directors. I had to take my record to these people, and I had to drive to see them. Email, it just, you know what I'm saying? I'm dating myself again, but email was just kind of getting started. Cell phones were just, kind of starting to turn into the smartphone age. We had to drive I had to drive to Greenville and Greenwood. I had to drive to Tupelo. I had to drive to Starkville. I had to drive to Gulfport, and I had to go meet with program directors to give them my record. I had to go to the actual physical record stores, take my CDs once the boxes came in, take them to these stores and drop them off myself and do the paperwork. YouTube was just starting. YouTube was brand new. So, shooting your video, and then, the videos, for you to actually shoot a good video, I spent, the video that I shot independently, I spent $4,000 or $5,000 on the video. And now you can shoot a good video for $150 if you got a nice camera. There are people that are doing it on their iPhone. So, technology was a huge part of that. But, I had to go visit people physically, and just imagine driving 2.5, 3 hours to different cities and getting someplace and somebody's not available to see you. Because you can't really call, you can call and try to set up a meeting, but that wasn't always, it didn't always work out like that. So if I call Meridian, Mississippi, and I get the record store on the line and I can go get a meeting with them and get them, and then I don't get the radio station, I'm gonna stop by the radio station while I'm there talking to the people at the record store. The program director might not be there. So I might get in there at the end and I have to set up a meeting. I might have to drive back to Jackson and then drive back the next day to have, I put a lot of mileage on my car, man. Like, I'm talking about a lot of mileage on that Nissan Sentra that I had. And, learning and evolving into now, we can go directly to the consumer. I didn't have to, when I made my video, when I did my first independent record, when I made my video, that was all I had to do. I made this video, I put it on YouTube, people can see it on YouTube, but really I needed my record on the radio station. As long as my record was getting played on radio, that was cool. And I had my flyers. I didn't have to make content. I didn't have to make shorts for YouTube. I didn't have to make, my video and make sure that it's 90 seconds so I can put it on IG and do it. Facebook didn't exist in any form. So I didn't have to do anything but make music and get that music to the DJs and get that music to the program directors. That's all I had to do. Now, anything that I do in any form, it's content before anything. Almost as important as creating the thing that you're pushing, almost as important as creating the music that you need to push. You got to have content. We got to see it. Even if it's not polished, even if it's not finished, people need to know. Even if you are not photogenic, let me make this little quick video on IG and tell people what it is that I'm doing. You got to always kind of be moving around. And for me, and people in my generation, an older generation, that's just not something that we did. We didn't broadcast everything that we did. We didn't talk about everything that we did. This generation talks about everything that you do, from eating, and from I'm in the club to what happened to me at school. Everything is documented. We just didn't come from that. So for me, it's also like you're giving a lot of yourself now in the world. So now, as a father, as a husband, I have to figure out, what pieces of me that I give to the rest of the world and what I keep for myself. And I think everybody that's out there that's doing this kind of needs to figure that out too at the end of the day. So it's a struggle, but you know, I had to learn from younger people how to finesse this content thing and learn how to do it and learn what to do and, you know, learn how to, you know, maneuver on TikTok, you know, coming from Facebook and then watching Facebook turn into the Vine and watching the Vine turn into Instagram and then watching TikTok and you got Snapchat. So you got all these different incarnations of these things. I've watched all of these things be created from their inception. And we're talking about College Club up to Facebook, like, you know, it's crazy. So, you know, even in that, just kind of learning how to maneuver through that, man, and learning what to give the world and what not to give the world and how not to get yourself so immersed in it that you lose sight of yourself. And I think that's the main thing. I think a lot of us older folks are able to differentiate real world from what's happening on social media. I think a lot of these young kids, you know, grow up with it and it's a part of them and it kind of shapes their personality and who they are, and they have not learned how to separate these social media platforms from what real life really is, and that's the unfortunate thing. So I think that's kind of the difference in it, you know, for me. I'm able to detach and look at social media for what it is, a tool to be able to do X, Y, Z. And the people that learn that, I think, is good, but I think we have a lot of young people, too, that have attached themselves, you know, so much to it that they're not able to differentiate. And that's kind of what creates this climate, this crazy climate that we have right now.
It's very interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
Especially for me, because I'm like, I was right before the age where it was like every baby had a tablet.
Yeah.
And everything. And so in a certain sense, I can detach a little bit too, but it's like I've used enough of it and grown up around other people who've used enough of it where it's like, we still straddle that fence and everything.
Yeah, you got to straddle the fence, man. I think the people that can detach occasionally and kind of get it for what it is, I think mentally, you know, we're going to always be in a better spot. I know a lot of people, a lot of young people that are so fully immersed in it that it's their world. Yeah. And then you have, you know, I've got a 15-year-old and, you know, that's their world. So now I've got twin grandsons who the first thing that you do is you give them a tablet. Mm-hmm. So now they're using smart tablets and phones and learning how to read and view things right here in their hand. So just imagine in 20 years what they're going to be dealing with, you know what I'm saying, and how they're going to be dealing with it. Now you've got AI, you've got ChatGPT. My wife and I were talking about that earlier today. Like people are, you know, having conversations with ChatGPT now and using it for their therapists. Like they're typing in what's going on in their life and ChatGPT is giving them some damn good answers back. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you reading it and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. So, you know, you're going to have to get involved. You're going to have to be a part of it because it's the way of the world. It's just like the first time I figured out that I was going to have to start paying my bills online. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's the first time somebody told me about Cash App after I've been using PayPal. I'm dating myself again. But, you know, those things you try to fight against, but it's going to happen. AI and ChatGPT is being used now for everything. And now we're going to have to start teaching our kids now, especially black kids, are going to have to learn how to maneuver so that they can be a part of it because it's going to be the way of the world. And we don't want them to be behind. They don't need to be behind. Unfortunately, we're going to have to get involved in it, man. It's scary to think about what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
All right. Founder of Jackson Indie Music Festival. It's been going on for over 10 years. Like you said, next year will be the 11th year. What does running and leading this festival mean to you after all this time?
This is one of my greatest achievements, one of the things that I'm most proud of. Mississippi is the birthplace of America's music, and it's only appropriate that we have a 7-day music festival here. I was able to perform at South by Southwest and be a part of it, and A3C, that used to be in Atlanta, and music festivals all over the country. And, you know, particularly now you see South by Southwest is kind of dead and, you know, the whole model for it has changed and kind of we are still here standing as an independent music festival. You know, I always took the notion that, you know, people are not smarter than we are in other places. I think people tell people in Mississippi that so much that they begin to believe it, but these folks are not smarter than we are. They're just not. We're just as smart as they are. We're just as talented as they are, and that's the attitude that I took when I created Jackson Indie Music Week, is that we deserve to have a music festival here because we're the birthplace of America's music. So we deserve to have an independent music festival here with all the music that we have. And like I said, about 11, 12 years ago, I got a bunch of people in the room and I was like, hey, let's do this. And a few of them was like, yeah. A few of them was like, nah. But a few of them was like, yeah. And that was, 11 and a half years ago. And here we are about to do it again in March of 2026, year number 11 of Jackson Indie Music Week. And we have had artists from all over this country that have come to Jackson, Mississippi to be a part of this festival. All genres of music. We've had people come from California, Minnesota, New York, Florida, all kinds of places. They have come to Jackson, Mississippi to be a part of this festival over this past decade. And we put on for independent music. And these people come into town and they stay in hotels, they eat at restaurants, they buy food, they buy merchandise, they buy gas. So these people are coming into town and we're kind of showing, the city of Jackson, Visit Mississippi, all of these entities that are sponsors of what we do. We're showing them that, the creative community can be an economic driver for the city as well. And that's kind of the only thing that these people understand. When you're going in and talking to politicians, a lot of them don't get the creative aspect of it. They don't care about the art. They don't care about independent music or what it can do. But if I can show you that if you support this, these people are going to come into town and they're going to spend money here, 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 and here, then that makes sense to you. Oh, okay, now I get it. All right, well, we'll give you a little bit of money to help us do that. We like the fact that you bring people into town. We like the fact that you spotlight the city. You're giving a positive spotlight to the city. And that's kind of the thing that I've had to do for the past 20 years. Like, I've been one of the people at the forefront of trying to get people in these political offices to understand the impact of the creative community. So I was one of the first people to be able to sit down with the mayors back in, the Harvey Johnson, era and the Frank Milton era, and sit down with them and get them to understand what the creative community actually brings to the city. Actually brings money in. It actually brings people in. It's actually something that you should invest in because that investment is going to help bring stuff back to the city. And that's kind of what Jackson Indie Music Week, has been, and what we hope for it to continue to be, and it's, like I said, it's one of my proudest achievements just because of the fact that we've been able to keep it going for a decade and more. A lot of things that people have started in this city have not made it this far. I didn't think we would make it this far myself. And, when I get ready to step aside and step away, we've got a good team of people. Danielle Walls, who was a festival, my right hand, my festival director, she basically runs the festival now. And I'm excited about being able to hand this football off to her and having her to run with it in the next few years when I step aside and I go and try to figure out something else to create. But Jackson Indie Music Week is going to live past me. I tell people all the time, you don't really know the impact of something that you have created until it can run without you being there, until it can run without you being a part of it. And I expect for Jackson Indie Music Week to continue to run and flourish when I'm not connected to it and when I'm not a part of it. And I'm looking forward to that time. I'm looking forward to being able to hand it off to Danielle and to the rest of the team and to see them take it and to see what they do with it and see when they put their sauce on it and see what they do with it in year 15, 16, 17, 18, and when it gets passed on to the next generation after that. So it's something that we hope to hand down, something to create a generational thing that we can create here in Jackson, Mississippi. So, 20 years from now, somebody's talking about Jackson Indie Music Week and the impact that it has had on the city, and hopefully it'll be bigger and better and greater along those times. Yeah.
You mentioned it multiple times at this point. What does being a father mean to you?
It's the most important and the most fulfilling job that I have in the world, if you can call it a job. I've got 3 grown kids. I've got a 30-year-old, a 29, and a 28, and then I have a 15-year-old. And then I've got 1-year-old grandsons. And being a father has been one of the most challenging things for me, but it has been one of the most fulfilling things to me. Bringing life into the world and nurturing that life, it's one of the most important things that you can do as a man. It's one of those things that you got to sacrifice for and be a part of. But I'm glad to do it. Wouldn't change a thing about it. It was rough roads here and there, taking care of kids and trying to be an artist. It was being an artist and not knowing where your next dollar is coming from in some instances and having to hustle, but you got mouths to feed. That's a challenge in and of itself. And, you know, there were some rough times, but there was also some great times. But now seeing the adults that they have turned into, and now watching my 15-year-old now is, you know, a 10th grader at Murrah. She's in APAC and she's in the AP classes, and watching her excel, like, you know, watching that has been, you know, one of my greatest achievements. So being a father is number one, being a husband, number two, and then, you know, all the things fall under that list, you know what I'm saying? From there, those first top two things kind of shape now how I do everything else. There was a time where those two things were not at the top of my list because I wasn't a husband yet, and being a father, I was not tuned in like I needed to be tuned in. But now, those things are one and two, and I think if you keep those things one and two, husband, you know, father, husband, you keep those things, the main things, everything else kind of works itself out under that point.
Love that. All right, we're hitting the last segment of questions here. It's actually just the last couple of questions at this point. What are some of your favorite things about Jackson?
The people. We've got some of the most unique people here. We've got some of the greatest people here, some of the smartest people, some of the toughest people, some of the most resourceful people. I've been all over this world, and when I tell you, this is no joke. Been to Ghana, been to Czech Republic, been to California, been to Little Rock, Tulsa, Montana, Maine, wherever I've gone, when I got to these places, there was somebody from either Mississippi or somebody from Jackson that was in these places that had gotten to these places and made a name for themselves. Funniest thing I remember telling people going to Ghana, staying in Accra, doing shows in Ghana, the first people that I met when I got there was a couple from Macomb, Mississippi. Oh, wow. And they had created this village down there where they were, you know, talking to people and impressing upon people to move to Ghana. They had created their own village. They had put their own thing together. We hustlers, man. When I went to the Czech Republic, when I went to Prague, the biggest party promoters that were out there was two basketball players that were from Mississippi. Like, we know how to hustle. We know how to do things with a little or nothing here. We know how to turn a dime into a dollar. We know how to, you know, do things on a shoestring budget. And wherever we go in the world, we are going to survive and we're going to excel at it. And that's what makes our people grittier and stronger and more resourceful than anybody else. I think our biggest export, our biggest positive is the people that we have here in this city and in this state.
All right, our last question. Read it a little slow. If you owned a library, what kind of library would it be? A music library, a movie/TV show library, or just a regular kind of like book library?
It'd be a regular book library because I think, you know, you need to be well-read in a lot of different things. I think for me, what I would specialize in is the history of Black folk in Mississippi. I think one of our strongest assets is our history as Black folk in this state. Unfortunately, I think a lot of our young people don't know the struggles of those that came before us. They don't know our history. And I think that kind of shapes a lot of that inferiority complex that they have right now. So my desire would be to have a library where they could come in and kind of understand how we got to where we got to, how we got here, why things are the way that they are, because there's a reason why things are the way that they are. If you don't like the way that things are right now, there's a reason why they're like that. And if you read about it and you know the history, you'll figure out the reason why these things are like that. And I'd like to be able to have that library to be a resource for you to be able to do that so you can learn these things. You can learn about music and all these other things in a lot of different places. They're good. And Mississippi has a rich musical history. And it's funny because the history of Black folks in this state is kind of intertwined with the music. So they'll get a music education. If they're learning about Fannie Lou Hamer, they're going to get a music education about Muddy Waters. Like, it's crazy how those things kind of intertwine. So I think I would just do a regular library that, you know, had a lot of different things in it, but, you know, mainly the history of Black folks in Mississippi. Yeah.
It's probably my second favorite answer of all the ones that I've gotten so far. But
Yeah.
For me personally, I would do a regular book library.
Yeah.
Because I just believe in that power. And I came from grandparents and my parents kind of being like education is like the main thing. And so I grew up reading.
Yeah.
Like darn near every day. And so
Reading is powerful, brother. Like I tell you, like reading is one of the most powerful tools that we have right now to be able to get over all of the stuff that Black folks are experiencing in Mississippi and in this country. Information is power. Reading is power. And the one thing that I do with my kids and what I stress with my grown kids and with my 15-year-old, and I'm gonna stress with my grandkids too, is read. Yeah. Read, because the information is there, and the more of that knowledge you have, the harder it is for somebody to be able to get over on you at the end of the day. The harder it is for somebody to be able to subjugate you, to oppress you, to get over on you, is if you're well read. That's one of the most powerful tools that we have.
Well, Brad, I definitely want to thank you for some of your time today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah, being able to share some of your experiences and everything.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Anytime, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. All right. This is More to Find. See y'all next time.